it's live.
All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our June the 22nd meeting of Belleville City Council. We gather today under the terms and conditions of a provincial declaration of emergency, and we are all aware of the seriousness of these times. I want to thank our municipal staff for assisting in the setup of this electronic meeting of Belleville City Council. And I also want to thank all members of council for their cooperation and flexibility in meeting under these unusual circumstances as permitted by the provincial government. For members of the public who are watching online through the city's web streaming service or on your TV, I'd like to take this opportunity to mention that the agenda that we are using for today's meeting and all the reports we'll be discussing are available on the City of Belleville's website, which may make it easier for you to follow along as we deal with this meeting. I will now call the meeting to order and state that all members of council are present. I am here in council chambers along with Councillor Culhane, and the remaining members of council are present electronically. Earlier this afternoon at 1:50 p.m., City Council met in a closed session to discuss the following items. In-camera report number DCS 2020-28 regarding potential acquisition or disposition of land pursuant to section 239(2)(c of the Municipal Act, and a review of the regular in-camera meeting minutes of June the 8th, 2020. It was moved by Councillor Culhane and seconded by Councillor Williams to move into closed session, and that was carried. I will now call the open session of our meeting to order. As I said, all of us are here. I'm going to ask our Director of Corporate Services and City Clerk to lead us in a moment of reflection.
May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Help us to be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, always having respect for others so that we may serve the people of our city in a helpful manner and for the good of all.
Thank you. There are no public meetings today, so I'll move on to number 5, which is the reading of and confirmation of minutes of the regular council meeting of June the 8th, 2020, and the regular in-camera meeting minutes of June the 8th, 2020. Can I get a motion to receive those? Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Any discussion about the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, it's carried. We do not have deputations today, so moving on to correspondence. The first item is the June 16th, 2020 letter from the Belleville Chamber of Commerce. It refers to consent item 8B5 in our agenda, and the resolution is that the June 16th, 2020 letter from the Belleville Chamber of Commerce outlining the events planned for this summer and providing particulars of the assistance required for these events be received and referred to consent item 8B5. Need a motion. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Culhane and Councillor Millette. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried. We'll move to item number 7.2, and this is the Ministry of Transportation consultant's presentation. This is a large document and it can be viewed in its entirety on the city's website. Councillors have received color copies of it. The resolution is that the June 22nd, 2020 presentation from the Ministry of Transportation and their consultants providing council with an update regarding preliminary design and environmental assessment studies for Highway 401 improvements in Belleville and Highway 62 Norris Whitney Bridge rehabilitation replacement projects be received. Can I get this moved and seconded? Councillor Carr and seconded by Councillor Sanderson. I'm going to ask CEO Bove to do a brief update. This has been an ongoing issue for the city, spanning multiple terms, but we've had it sort of moving along a little more quickly. Mr. Bove, do you want to just give a very brief overview of this?
Sure. Thank you, Your Worship. As many of you know, the MTO has been working towards an environmental assessment on the ultimate expansion of Highway 401 from Wellbridge Loyalist Road through to Mitchell Road in the east end of the city. It involves many upgrades to overpasses that go over the highway through the city and the ultimate widening of the 401 to 6 lanes and eventually at some point possibly 8 lanes. We've had many discussions with MTO over the last couple of years that this has been going on. We've we've managed to move the needle significantly on active transportation connections over the 401, and so those are included in their preliminary designs at this point, and we're very happy with those. This project also included the Norris Whitney Bridge, so that will involve the ultimate construction of a second bridge, which will end with there being 4 lanes of traffic over the Bay of Quinte into Prince Edward County. The one issue that there has been some movement on, although I'm not sure that's quite enough, is the city has always maintained a desire to see a new East End arterial road, commonly referred to as the Bear, some point east of Highway 37 where it connects to the 401. Initially, MTO was looking at it. They pulled that from the EA, essentially saying that it was not needed, that it didn't serve any of their purposes while they made the decisions to maintain the Highway 37 interchange. In discussions with them, they have modified their wording to indicate that they're not precluding it from ultimately being done, but they haven't included it as a recommendation in the EA at this point.
All right, thank you. So, you know, again, this is an issue for us. We're concerned about the 401, and so we can discuss it. I do have an amendment to this motion to allow us to keep that that part of the project still alive. But does anyone have any questions about the report? Councillor Thompson, do you want to activate your microphone? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, one thing back on page, I don't know what page it is, but it states not currently in MTO's 5-year capital plan. So in your amendment, are we going to be able to get more of an update of, you know, in their future plans, when it might be? Because if it's not in their 5-year plan, it's probably not going to be a number of years after that. So it'd be interesting to see if we can get a little closer timing on the project itself.
Yeah, they're just doing the design work on it now, Councillor Thompson, to prepare everything. Actually, I think the expansion of the 401 through Kingston was finally completed a few weeks ago, and that was a 16-year project. So from the beginning to it. So this will not be done very, very quickly. We can certainly ask for it. I expect that we won't get any news about an actual construction start time included in their budget provincially until after the next election. So we're going to be at least 2 years before they have that information for us.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else have any questions on this? Councillor Carr and then Councillor Sanderson. You want to activate your, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to point out that not only is it in the 5-year plan, but they're, as you refer to, the lengthy construction window, they're looking at a horizon of 2036 through that corridor. So I just want to thank council for at least allocating the money to start some preliminary design on active transportation under the 401. Because if we're going to wait for the MTO, we're not going to have a resolution quick enough to add that connectivity. So thank you.
Sure. Councillor Sanderson, you want to activate your microphone? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to CAO Bove. So the I realize this is off in the horizon at some point in time, right? But the Sydney Street crossing, if they're going to widen that to 4 lanes, which I believe is the undertaking, have we or should we have some discussion with Quinte West about making Sydney Street 4 lanes all the way up to Vermilion Road?
Mr. Bove?
Through his worship to Councillor Sanderson, it's certainly a good question. The preliminary design, as I recall, does have some widening of Sydney Street to 4 lanes for a short while north of the 401, but in no shape or fashion does it go even as far as Maitland Drive, so let alone Vermilion. So that's something we would have to discuss with the City of Quinte West. As we have a boundary road agreement on that section of road. The question would be, you know, when or if the traffic counts would justify 4 lanes,
Sure.
you know, north of Maitland Drive, for instance.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, Councillor Thompson.
Just one, when Mr. Beauvais is speaking, I'm finding it hard to understand it on his mic system.
Okay, we'll try to get that volume corrected. Listen, I appreciate everyone's patience. This is a very unnatural process, but we're getting through as best we can. I'm going to ask Mr. Coyle to put up on your screens a proposed amendment or addition to the Councillor Carr. You moved it, seconded by Councillor Sanderson, and I've got an additional paragraph that I'm going to suggest so that we can contact the Minister of Transportation to ensure that the work continue to maintain a viable future option for the Belleville East Arterial Road. We don't want to see this project continue moving on with design and environmental assessments and then have it be too late. So it's coming up on your screen now. You do see the first paragraph is the exact identical paragraph from the resolution, and then a second paragraph. Can you just scroll up a little bit, Mr. Coyle? Can everyone see I can't see the second part of the motion. Can anyone else see it? So
No,
the second paragraph says, so where the wording now says received, and then it would have, and that the mayor be directed to communicate with the Minister of Transportation on behalf of the city to identify the importance to the city's continued and future growth and prosperity that the Belleville East Arterial Road be maintained by the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario as a viable future option as the MTO continues with the 401 improvements, planning and design. So apologize that we don't have it up for you on there. I can read it again if people need me to do that. Councillor Carr and Sanderson, are you okay with that addition on the original motion?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So we have the amended motion before us. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. We'll go back to the normal screen. And I have a couple of additional items similar to the last meeting. I received some petitions from Dr. Mary Gwerdzal with a number of names of people regarding the South Front Street area of the city and the property at 45 South Church Street. As I explained to council at the last meeting, we have no active applications for any changes. We understand that the property has been sold, but there's 2 additional petitions of names from the area that I'm just going to ask to be received. Can I get a motion for that, please? Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor McCaw. All in favor? It's carried. And if council, if you ever want to see the petitions themselves and the names, Mr. McDonald has them here on file, and we have received those. All right, item number 8, Committee of the Whole. So I have a motion to go into Committee of the Whole to hear and consider reports, passing of recommendations and resolutions with myself in the chair. Motion moved by Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. All in favor, it's carried. There are no reports on today's items, so we'll move to consent items. And I'll go around, and if you can just give me the thumbs up if you are good with, if you can give me the thumbs up if you have items you want to pull. So I'll start with Councillor Kelly in the top left corner of my screen. Nothing. Councillor McCaw? Okay, nothing. Councillor Thompson?
I wanted
Nothing?
8B4. 8B4,
Oh, you want to pull,
sorry.
Councillor McCaw wants to pull 8B4.
8B4.
Councillor Thompson, I think is good. Councillor Sanderson?
8B3.
8B3. Councillor Culhane?
8B3 and 8B5.
Councillor Culhane is pulling 8B3 and 8B5. Councillor Williams? Okay, he's good. Councillor Carr?
8B7, please.
8B7, all right. Councillor Millette? Okay, thank you, everybody. So the following agenda items be approved with the exception of items 8B3, 8B5, and 8B7. and 8B4. So 8B3, 8B4, 8B5, and 8B7. Can I get a motion for that, please? Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Williams. All in favor, it's carried. Let's move to item number 8B3, and this is the Thurlow Fence Bylaw. Manager Approvals Report number APS 2020-31, and the resolution is that a bylaw to amend bylaw number 3447, a bylaw to prescribe the height and description of fences within the former township of Thurlow by deleting section 3 in its entirety and renumbering sections 4 to 9 inclusive, accordingly be prepared for council's consideration. Moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Millette. Councillor Sanderson, I believe you had that pulled. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is as much for myself as it is for the public. So up until now, there has been no fence height restriction in Ward 2. But dating back to 92 and then subsequently through the amalgamation, there is a restriction in Ward 2, and it was in place since 92 at 6 feet. So I certainly support making both wards the same. My question is for, I guess, CAO Bovey. So if we pass this and tomorrow somebody wants to put a swimming pool in and they decide they want to put a 6-foot fence in, but one of the abutting neighbors decides because of the new change that he'd like to put a 10-foot fence in on his property. How does that play out? And does the owner of the 10-foot fence have right of access on the neighbor's property, let's say with a swimming pool, to make any repairs or adjustments that he wants to make to that fence?
Mr. Bovey.
Through your worship to Councillor Sanderson. Hopefully you can hear me okay now. Yeah, the challenge is where you have different rules. Obviously, people talk to one another that live in both wards of the city, and there's always confusion on that issue. The intent here is we will amend the bylaw for Thurlow, and that will allow people to, if they choose to construct a fence higher than the 6 feet. There is, I know you mentioned a pool, there is a separate bylaw that covers pool enclosures, so there are minimum heights for pools and the fencing of them, so the person will have to meet those minimum heights. And the intent would be that we will look at the height of fences issue through the consolidation of the zoning bylaw. And council's aware that we're moving forward, consolidating our existing 3 zoning bylaws into one. And we want to make sure that we have one consistent approach to fences throughout the city. You know, there's different opinions. There's a lot of right answers, wrong answers as well. There are pros and cons to having a limit. There are advantages to not having a limit. So I think that is something staff want to see addressed through the consolidated zoning process so that we have one consistent approach. But if council is supportive of this, we'll at least have some consistency between Thurlow and Belleville for the time being that we move to the consolidated bylaw.
Go ahead, Councillor Sanderson.
Okay, so maybe I'll take my other question offline in terms of right to access. I'll maybe talk with the property standards group.
Yeah, but I do have some wording for a potential inclusion in the official plan revisions, and I can propose that after this. Anyone else have any questions or comments on this item? So Councillor Sanderson, you moved it, and I believe Councillor Millette seconded it. I wonder if you would be open to inserting an additional portion of a sentence after the words "be prepared for council's consideration," that we would insert, and that the official plan revisions, the official plan revisions control language for a city-wide maximum fence height of 8 feet. This would allow staff, as we're going through this process, to propose it. It would come back. Obviously we have no restrictions at this point, and then we can debate it at that time for inclusion. But this would at least give some direction to our staff to have something proposed to us in terms of a maximum fence height within the city of Belleville for all of the city of Belleville. Are you okay with that, Councillor Sanderson?
So the 8-foot maximum would run counter to an issue I'm actually working with the engineering folks now, and that's for the properties located on Simcoe off Farnham that back onto the commercial property there, Reed's Insulation. So they're looking to actually put a 10-foot fence.
Yeah. So this motion or this inclusion, Councillor Sanderson, would allow people still to go to the Committee of Adjustments if they wish some relaxation on this. But basically, and it would also ensure that if you cannot have a 6-foot fence if it was affecting sight lines for people's driveways for safety issues, but at least would give us a rule of thumb that, by and large, if you are in the city of Belleville, your fence would be restricted unless you went to the Committee of Adjustments for relaxation. I put the figure of 8 feet in just to begin to have the conversation. I think 6 might be too short in some areas, but obviously 10 or 12 feet would be too high in some areas. So if you're okay with it, that would be my suggestion. It'll come back to council for our decision later on in any event.
Okay, sure.
Okay, Councillor Millette, are you okay with that as an addition? Okay, thank you. Councillor Thompson, I saw that you had a question or a comment you wanted to make. Do you want to activate your microphone? Go ahead, sir.
Comment, because I think that's a good motion in there to add in the 8 feet, because we ran into this issue in one section of Belleville a couple of years ago. A particular neighbor put up a 10-foot fence and we had no restrictions. And so I think putting a limit on it certainly eliminates any conflict if somebody has a dispute with a neighbor and they want to put a higher one up. So.
All right, anyone else? So that age-old saying that good fences make for good neighbors, it depends on the type of fence. So we're going to try to make sure that we have the appropriate fence. So I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. And Councillor Sanderson, if you'll just carry that item up offline regarding maintenance and access to properties. So that was 8B3. Next item is 8B4, use of animal traps. The General Manager, Transportation and Operation Services Report number GMTOS-2020-20. And the resolution is that the General Manager of Transportation and Operation Services Report number GMTOS-2020-20 regarding the use of animal traps be received as information. Moved by Councillor McCaw, seconded by Councillor Millette. Councillor McCaw, you had raised this originally. Do you want to activate your microphone and we'll let you lead off?
Thank you, through you. Clearly, this is something that is troublesome to me, but at the same time, I do understand. I wanted to thank Manager Reed and his crew. It's not been an easy task, and I know I've probably been harder about this matter than most, and I'm sure they haven't taken it lightly. And I want them to know that I certainly don't blame them for doing their job. But who I do blame really is the Ministry of Natural Resources. I consider them, in my personal opinion, to have not been helpful in any situation pertaining to beavers. And from my perspective, they're nothing short of a propaganda arm for organizations like the fur managers or other professional sport trapping organizations. Relocation should be an option for us, but thanks to the Ministry of Natural Resources, that isn't an option. And here we have a couple of beavers that will be euthanized, that have been euthanized because we have no option. I'd probably be remiss if I didn't mention and acknowledge the few homeowners that sent the countless, I think the count's 11 emails now, lobbying for the senseless killing of these, of our national symbol. I'm really sorry that the back of their property might have gotten a little bit more damp sometimes, but again, I'd like them to know this isn't going to solve the problem. We're not going to kill our way out of this situation where beavers inhabit where they inhabit an area. When they leave, 2 more beavers will show up. So this is not a problem that's going to be solved. It's going to continue. These beavers were here long before we were. And I guess having said all that, there's not much that can be done at this point in time. But I'm wondering about, and maybe this isn't the place to do it. Maybe you can advise me. The clerk could advise me. I would like to bring a resolution forward that we lobby the MNR in an effort to support safe relocation of beavers as opposed to this senseless killing of them. So I don't know where the correct time would be to do that and maybe what the language should be, but perhaps I could ask the clerk and maybe even Manager Reid for some advice on that matter.
Sure. So currently, Councillor McCaw, I don't think you mentioned the distance, but under the provincial rules, we are only allowed to relocate beavers 1,000 meters. And what ends up happening is once they're relocated, they immediately come back to their area, which is why, unfortunately, in this case, we've had to destroy these animals as humanely as possible. And we've changed the rules from before where leg hole traps were permitted. So that wasn't used and staff have worked very, very hard. So do you have a number in mind, or should you want me to ask Mr. Reid for a suggestion? Because I think you can amend this resolution to add that we send a letter requesting what it is you're looking for. So if Mr. Coyle can activate Mr. Reid, and we'll bring him in on the meeting. Just take us one moment. Mr. Reid, welcome. If you can activate your microphone, please. Good. I'm not sure if you heard Councillor McCaw's comments. Do you need me to summarize, or you're good to go?
Yeah, no, I have heard Kelly's comments through the chair to all council. You know, I mean, one kilometer is not very far. You know, a beaver can relocate back into the area. As far as giving a number, I'm not quite sure what the answer should be. To be quite honest with you, you'd have to contact a biologist that you know, specializes in that type and how they can travel and so forth. I guess I can't answer the question.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Reid. So, Councillor McCaw, do you want to, we can deal with it now by amending this resolution, or you can take this and bring back through a notice of motion so that we can deal with it again. I know you're not going to forget about this. You've been a real strong advocate, and I know that we want to thank Mr. Reid. You know, we brought in the beaver deceiver trying to assist in controlling the water levels while we allow these beavers to live in their natural habitat, because they've been there a lot longer than the homes are. But this year it became a concern for property and for people in terms of their safety. So they've had to take the step. Do you want to make a resolution now or make an amendment now, or would you like to come back with a notice of motion?
Thank you for you. You know what, I'd like to do this right, and I'd like to have all accurate information. So I think that, you know, perhaps we could do some research, find out what an appropriate distance would be, and come back with a notice of motion. If we're going to go forward with trying to lobby the MNR, I want to make sure that we're effective in doing so. So I think the more information we have that we're armed with, the better chance we have. So I'm fine with bringing that back after some research to find out what, you know, maybe a proper distance would be. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to have anything to say on this, or any questions? Councillor Culhane, can you activate your microphone, please? Yeah, we'll get to it. Okay, there you go, ma'am.
Thank you, Worship. I'd simply like to state that as past chair of the board of the Quinte Humane Society, I certainly support Councillor Kelly and her initiative, and I thank Manager Reid sincerely for his efforts to come to some satisfactory conclusion between the residents and the natural inhabitants of that body of water. I would appreciate the honor of seconding your motion, Councillor Kelly, when you bring it forward. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Councillor Culhane. Anyone else? All right, I'll call for the motion. The motion is to receive it as information. All in favor? If motion's carried. Thank you. Councillor Culhane, can I just get you to mute your
I'm trying.
microphone now? Yeah, okay.
Well, it's simply.
Okay, thank you. 8B5, the Belleville Chamber of Commerce report regarding special events contract, Canada Day celebrations, curbside culture, and the Lions concerts by the Bay. The Belleville Chamber of Commerce special events contract report refers to item 7 on the correspondence. And the resolution is that the assistance requested by the Belleville Chamber of Commerce for special events, Canada Day events, July 1st, 2020, curbside culture, July 10th, 11th, and 12th, 2020, Lions concerts on the Bay, 2020, go virtual, as set out in the report, be approved and referred to staff, and that the corporation of the city of Belleville will pay all municipal building permit signage and licensing fees for these events. And whereas bylaw number 2001-68 authorizes the council of the corporation of the city of Belleville to designate by resolution an event to be a civic celebration for the purpose of licensing hawkers, peddlers, street vendors, et al. And whereas bylaw number 2001-68 may designate the areas and locations within the corporate limits where any civic celebration is to be operated. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the period of July 10th to 12th, 2020 for curbside culture be designated as a civic celebration in the corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the concession fee included in Schedule A to bylaw 2001-68 be determined by the Belleville Chamber of Commerce, and that the area lying north of Bridge Street West, west of Sydney Street, east of the Belmont Nursing Home, and south of 250 Sydney Street, the fairgrounds property, be designated as the area and location of a civic celebration in the corporation of the city of Belleville. That is the resolution. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor Williams. I'm sorry, I forget who identified this item. Councillor Culhane, then perfect, we've got you making the motion. Want to activate your microphone? Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. I simply wanted to congratulate the Chamber of Commerce and all of the related city staff for setting up such a marvelous venture. It was terribly unfortunate last year, and I was unable to attend the official pop-up opening at Zwick's last Thursday. So I went Saturday to see for myself and to meet the owners and to get pictures to promote them on my social medias. I just think it's a marvelous development. I give credit to Councillor Williams for bringing this concept forward initially. And anyone who hasn't been there, I would urge you from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. daily, go over and see for yourself. It's very exciting, very interesting. Thank you.
All right. So I'll just remind everybody, we're talking about the Chamber of Commerce events for Canada Day, Curbside Culture, and the Lions concert on the Bay. So no problem. Anyone else like to speak on this? Councillor Millette, can I get you to activate your microphone? Go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just a quick question, and whoever can clarify, and I've been wondering about this in the past. The Lions concerts on the Bay, I see there will be 16 performances going virtual, and they'll be broadcast on TV Cogeco, and I would assume maybe on other, on the Chamber's YouTube channel. Would the performances themselves be at the band shell at Zwick's? Does anybody know, or will the musical acts themselves just be submitting them from wherever?
From the discussion we had when we made the announcement about their proposed lineup change here at City Hall a few weeks ago, there was going to be a variety of venues that this would be recorded at. It would be pre-recorded and played at a later time. I do believe they did have the suggestion that some would be done at the band shell as well. But social distancing, the group limit numbers, all of those items will have to be factored in and as they go along. So.
Yeah, thank you. That was my concern, that if there were concerts there, and I mean, look at everybody's getting smarter about it. Our numbers are down locally, but it's still an issue. And my concern would be that, hey, let's go down to the park on Sunday afternoon and take in Andy Forgy or whomever. And then one thing leads to another and we've got a big crowd. So that was my only concern about that. Thank you.
Well, and as you know, Councillor Millette, as of today, you're not allowed to have music on outdoor patios or events because of the potential of gathering people. So, but that may all change as we continue to have good progress. So, does anyone else have anything they'd like to say on this one? Councillor Culhane, do you want to do a second round? And I'll get you to activate your microphone first. Go ahead, ma'am.
There we go. Thank you very much. Once again, I've made my announcement at the point of the motion, but since both referred to the Chamber of Commerce and my notes conflicted, it was easy to do.
Yes.
So I wanted to speak specifically to the Chamber of Commerce organizing and the staff of the City of Belleville supporting these events. Switching over to virtual has been difficult for all of us and probably the worst of all for me. But this is a wonderful alternative. They've done a superb job. And I think the people who get themselves, well, I know the people who get themselves a passport and follow along and go for the food especially. There's a wonderful setup of food. This is going to be a great day. And congratulations are in order for organizing it so beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no others wish to speak, I will call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. 8B7, Downtown District BIA Summer Long Event. And there's a letter of request for assistance and road closures from the downtown improvement area. And the resolution is that the request for assistance and waiver of fees from the Downtown District BIA for their summer long event from June 26th to September the 30th, 2020 be referred to the grant committee, and that the northbound traffic lane of Front Street between the south side of Victoria Avenue and the north side of Bridge Street and Campbell Street from Pinnacle Street be closed to traffic subject to emergency vehicle access from Friday, June 26th to September the 30th, 2020. Can we get this on the floor? Motion to approve it. Councillor Williams, seconded by Councillor Culhane. I'm going to suggest that we actually might want to do some different things. I see, seeing as the grant committee, I don't believe we have a scheduled meeting for the next little while. And I know the BDI would like a decision. At the last council meeting, we redirected some previous funding so that they can start on this. And I think we should probably give some more direction even before we deal with our budget on July the 6th. So I'll open it up for discussion, and perhaps we can massage this to get it going there. Councillor Carr, I see you'd like to speak, and I recognize you. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. And yes, I asked this to be pulled because there was reference to referring it to the grant committee. I've been communicating with staff now to set up a meeting, but regardless, it would have to come back to council for approval. And with our next meeting being July 13th, we're kind of putting the BIA in a little bit of a disadvantage. So it'd probably be wise to just take out the referral of the grant committee, and if I could make that amendment, and we just deal with the request here. It's pretty straightforward. It's a little bit of deviation from previous events, but nonetheless, it's something that we've certainly dealt with in grant committee before, and all of council is familiar with these type of requests.
Sure. Councillor Williams, I believe, made the motion, seconded by Councillor Culhane. Are you well? Let's maybe have some discussion about it, and then we can come back and maybe take care of one amendment to a number of things. But I certainly appreciate your comments, Councillor Carr, about taking out that referral. Councillor Williams, on discussion, you want to activate your microphone?
Yes, sir. So thank you very much. I think I certainly support that. I think, you know, downtown needs that. And I would also support a second amendment. I don't know if it's been discussed or not, on the Creos, and that's the lights downtown Belleville, and that's meant to be an attraction. When we actually look at our EDDC strategy, which hasn't been approved by council yet, but it's been in front of council, part of what we're looking to do to help the city is what's called product development. So normally in tourism, we think of marketing, and that's what Bay Quinte Regional Marketing Board does for us. But product development is actually the act of creating products just like pop-ups, which would bring people to the city. Given through COVID that, we have limited product. We don't have Rockfest this year or the Summer Music Fest. We don't have a lot of different things we normally have. I think that also fits within downtown. And I know that maybe that's something we can bring forward to budget and have the discussion. But I know just like this instance, downtown needs to have answers now, given what's happening and given that they need to put this event on. I really believe not just being on the downtown and spending a lot of time speaking about it, but now the more that we've talked about it and they've been great at getting this program coming forward and bringing it to council as quickly as they have. I really believe that we do need to support this for downtown. I think it's not just good for the downtown as we often look at it. I think it's good for the city in terms of tourism product development. That coupled with the openings at Myers Pier and having that pier in that whole area downtown, and then the pop-ups, it forms a nice little triangle. It would be nice to see some more developed uptown and in Thurlow, but this is what we have for now. So not only do I support that we put that part through now and bypass the grant committee, I'd love to see an amendment. I'll wait for more discussion on using some MAP money to support the Creos, which is a light display that is downtown, so that they are ready to put something forward that is going to be a good tourism product development for City Belleville.
Great, thank you. Councillor Thompson and then Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just want to say that I support this wholeheartedly because I still question of where the one lane, whether we could, has there been any thought by the DBA of moving it farther from the upper bridge down to the far side of City Hall? I know that causes some traffic problems, but it would include all of Front Street. But it also, the other side of this, by expanding this and closing one side of the street, it certainly opens it up to more accessibility issues, because as we increase the cafes outside, the patios, by doing this, it creates a lot more avenues for accessibility, people with wheelchairs and so on to come downtown and enjoy the downtown. So has there been any thought of the DBAA of closing the street further up?
Thank you. I wonder if I can get Manager Reid to be activated. Mr. Coyle will do that. There's, as you can imagine, Councillor Thompson, there's been a lot of discussion with city staff. We delegated some authority at the last meeting to Director Ashton to be able to allow for the expansion of patios onto onto the sidewalk, and being facilitating as much as we can. There is some discussion with respect to the safety requirements for closing one lane and not. I don't think we've made a final decision on that, but I will ask Manager Reid. Do you want to provide some comments and even some of your thoughts about moving forward? Council, I think, is looking to take direction from those of you that are experts on what's the safest, best thing to do to allow businesses during this really unusual year to do everything they possibly can to survive. And I know you've been dealing with that. Mr. Reid?
Yeah, through the chair to all council. I do know Mary Jo has been discussing different options. And, at the end of the day, anything's possible. But the challenge is that we don't want to drive. We want to still have it accessible to people to come. Our community, for the most part, does use vehicles to get to and from work and locations. And if we limited the downtown core too much to vehicular traffic, we may cause more problems than what we really want. We want to have people to come downtown. So I know Mary Jo had looked at a full lane closure for the top end. However, she, after looking at it, she wanted to just go to the one lane. South of Bridge Street would cause some other concerns with buses and so forth in our transit, and we don't want to have any hindrance for our transit getting to people from the downtown and to their places of where they live and where they work. So right now, Mary Jo's asking for this, between the top end or Victoria to Bridge Street, and we think it is doable to take it down to one lane.
Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to be closing the total street. I was just saying if we could open if there had been some discussion of closing and having one lane from the upper bridge down, but you've explained it very well, and thank you very much.
Okay. Any further discussion on this item? I have Councillor Kelly next. Go ahead, Councillor Kelly, and then I have Sanderson. Councillor Millette, did you raise your hand earlier? No, okay, so it'll be Councillor Kelly, followed by Councillor Sanderson, and then Councillor Culhane. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say I support this as well. I'd like to get it moving today, and being involved on the Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing Board, and also part of the conversations with the Mayor's Task Force in downtown. We know last Friday when the province opened up stage 2, I witnessed many of the businesses downtown putting in patios last week, working around the clock to get that done. And this past weekend had a chance to go through the downtown core a few times and noticed it was busy. And that tells me the businesses are committed to this new look. So it's brought renewed energy. We all know the success of a downtown has to be vibrant. There's economic benefits. But with COVID-19, I strongly believe downtown also offers a lot of social benefits now. And by shutting down those one side of the street, you're going to get people communicating, respecting social distancing. But and when I look at the plan that Mary Jo and the downtown district has put together, 10 picnic tables, that's good. Families can come down and sit together, use of the market square on Friday. So more than ever, this is the time to be back in the downtown, and all the businesses to hopefully see that they have a successful rest of 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Sanderson, you want to activate? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So Al Fresco came to council at the last meeting, and I supported it then. I'll support it now. It was an initiative from the Downtown Improvement BDIA. So it's just like e-commerce. It came from the BDIA. It didn't come from the EDDC. So that's point one. Point two, we talked, I think the number was 47,000, of which we were going to upfront them 25K or 22K. I may have the numbers reversed. And then the additional monies, we were going to look at, I don't know why it ended up with the grant committee, because I thought it was going to come from MAT tax. And then, so this is just the plan that supports basically what we all endorsed at last council. So I'm 100% behind it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Culhane. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I will echo everything that's been said and offer congratulations to the BDI. It's an excellent plan. I love the downtown. I love to go downtown. I know the merchants, and this will give a new fresh look to downtown and bring more people. If we want this city to thrive through the current challenge, then we need to support our downtown merchants. So yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Culhane. So just a couple of clarifications, just so, because we've had some discussion and just to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So at the last meeting, we received a proposal from the BDIA with 3 different options of some suggestions. In 2019, we allocated some of the municipal accommodation tax towards other events in downtown. And at the last council meeting, we reallocated those towards whatever of the 3 options would happen. So they've received some of the 2019 MAT funds for that. There were 3 options. They totaled, the grand total was for option 3 was 31,000, option 2 was 37,000, and option 1 was 47,000, which means that there's a gap between those $25,000 of funds we gave and what they're looking for from the city. We have been able to look at reallocating some of the municipal costs, meaning staff time and items like materials, garbage cans, or as we monetize all those. And with the fact that the Spicy Food Festival and the Downtown at Dusk have already been canceled, we think that that's going to be a wash on those items, which means that the BDIA will be short, depending on the option, anywhere from $6,000 to $22,000. The challenge we have is we can't allocate municipal accommodation tax dollars to that because we've expended all of the 2020 funds that we've collected. So we don't have any funds now. So my suggestion is that we should make a decision on if we want to go with option 3 for $6,000, option 2 for $12,000, or option 1 for $22,000. And that will be funded through the 2020 grant committee budget, which does have some resources in there. You know, again, I think that's the decision as we go ahead. That would be on top of the 25,000 we've already directed, so 6, 12, or 22, and that can be part of the amendment that we consider on that. But as I said, the 2020 funding source of municipal accommodation tax is depleted. We've already put that forward to the Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing Board, and we are. I'm just losing my train of thought here. We've already done that, and we suspended the collection of those funds for April, May, and June this year. So that's where we're at. So let's deal with. I know Councillor Carr, you had suggested that taking it away from referring it to the grant committee. Can I just ask you before then we'll deal with Councillor Williams' additional information. As chair of the grant committee, are you okay with whatever figure we use, 6, 12, or 22, that come out of the 2020 grant committee's resources?
Do you happen to know what the current balance is right now?
No, but Director Hines, and I'm not putting words in her mouth. She said that there are sufficient funds to fund them, either one of those 3 options, but it'll be a decision of council.
Okay, no, just I know we do have some applications, but I know we do have some balance there. My bigger concern was just making sure on timing that we didn't get it caught up in the process here and then delay a decision for them.
Sure, okay, thank you. Now, Councillor Williams, you had talked about funding some of that. This 6,000, 12,000, or 22,000, does that cover whatever we decide as the option, or will that cover that, or are you looking for funds in addition to that?
Well, I think if by the request, the staff time, the staff resources, which normally go through grant, which we approve, that's fine. I think it's the additional monies, right, that they're looking for the CREOs. Just a housekeeping issue, maybe Ms. Director Hines can answer for me. We've spent, from my understand on Matt, money that we had held in reserve, and that went forward to Bay Quinte Regional Marketing Board. And that's as far as I understood how we spent that. But I don't think we've had the policy brought forth on the Matt yet. I know we were waiting for that pre-COVID. Last year, I'm just going to look at precedents. We spent money, I think there was motions made in May or June 2019 for fireworks that I think it was 25,000 in July 2019. So we've spent money before we've collected it from Matt. We only started taking it last July. I know just from the industry, there is going to be money collected July, August, September, October. It's not going to be what we wanted, but there's going to be some money in there. Could we not look at taking or doing an approval for some of those funds instead of taking it a grant? And I guess maybe it's 2 questions to Director Hines. What's the balance? Do we have a lot of money in grant? And is that going to cover this? Or should we look at a hybrid maybe with Matt and the funds from grant committee?
Okay, let's activate Director Hines. We'll bring her on online here. And there she is. Director Hines, welcome to the meeting. And have you heard all the questions and the discussion?
I have, and I'm just trying to access a report now that'll give me that balance. So I just need a couple of minutes.
Sure.
Yeah, I just need to, I'm trying to access a report. I actually create a report, so you'll just
listen, we appreciate you. We'll be patient. But we know you like to be very precise in the information you provide us, so we'll give you as much time as you need.
There is sufficient funding in the grant committee to cover any options 1, 2, or 3. In terms of the accounting for the MAT funding, I would have to get back to you on the exact disposition of the funds for 2020, and I would hesitate to use money for the balance of the year before we've actually earned it. I think we were trying to move ahead to get the MAT funding on the same plateau or the same basis as we were using for OLG money, and that was accumulating in one year and spending in the next. So I would hesitate to use money, commit money for 2020 that we haven't earned yet.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Williams, anything else on that?
No, that's fine. And I think if it's in the grant and it's that for that use, I think it fits in both. And certainly, you know, I think it's a good spend. And just to reiterate, I think downtown has done something great. There's going to be more things that come out that they're going to need help with. But for now, that's something that's great. And I think it's a good use of the money.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on discussion on this item? So can I just get a sort of a straw poll? So we have the three options. They were a little different in terms of their makeup, but 6,000, 12,000, and 22,000. Does anyone have strong feelings about which one of those options they would like to see? I can tell you I don't have strong feelings myself on it. I'll start with Councillor Kelly.
My feelings, 22.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thompson.
I would not vote for 12,000.
Okay. Anyone else? Because we've got two different ones. Anyone else have? We'll have the amendment and contain this. So I'm just looking for that straw poll. Councillor Culhane. Maybe just tell me and I can pass it along. 22. Councillor Culhane is good with 22,000. Does anyone have an objection with the 22,000? Okay. So if I'm reading the sense of this Zoom meeting correctly, we're going to make the decision now and that we are going to fund option 1 for an additional $22,000, and staff will work with the BDIA regarding road closures. Even though we've approved these at this point, if through the discussion about safety concerns and traffic management, they need to make some modifications, they'll have that flexibility, and they will also have the funding. So the mover on that was Councillor Williams, and I believe Councillor Culhane. Are we good with that, Councillor Williams and Culhane? Okay, so consider that motion amended. I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you, and good luck to the BDIA with the summer. As Councillor Kelly said, it's wonderful to see the extra patios. What I will say is that we have not canceled the Porch Fest activities, including the after party for September. We will obviously wait and see how it goes, but the City Council, based on the recommendation of the grant committee, has already approved municipal resources for that event. So working with the Rotary Club and with the BDIA, we'll see how that goes. Thank you, colleagues. That takes us to the end of our consent items. So we'll move to 8C, council information matters. And council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council shall consider such items individually. I'll go the opposite way, starting with Councillor Millette. Do you have any of the items you want to pull? No, thank you. Councillor Carr? No. Councillor Williams? No. Councillor Culhane? No. Councillor Sanderson? No. Councillor Thompson?
No.
Councillor McCaw? No. Councillor Kelly? No, thank you. All right, so that means the agenda items be received. All in favor? It's carried. I need a mover and a seconder, I'm sorry. So Councillor Kelly and Councillor Thompson moved that they be received. The motion passed. Motion to rise and report, moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Williams. All in favor? It's carried. We're going to move to bylaws. I'm just going to move around out of the sun. I'm good, Mark. Thanks. It's good. So I will read just the numbers. First reading of bylaws 2020-122, 123, 124, 125, 126, and 127. If I can get a motion to approve those, moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Culhane. All in favor? It's carried. Second reading of the bylaws and discussion on bylaws 2020-122, 123, 124, 125, 126, and 127. Moved by Councillor Millette, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any discussion on any of those items? Seeing none, we'll move to third and final reading of bylaws 122, 123, 124, 125, 126, and 127. Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All in favor, it's carried. So we'll move now to new business, and I will start off with a couple items. So much is happening in our city as we reactivate our economy and see reductions in the restrictions imposed by the orders included in the provincial declaration of emergency. I am very pleased to see residents and businesses continue to take the necessary steps of social distancing as we continue to keep safe here in our city. Thank you very much to all. I can share some wonderful news that City Hall is now open to the public again. Residents can come by appointment under reduced hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. This is very exciting news and a step in the right direction as we continue to open back up for our residents. If there is business that you need to conduct in person, please contact City Hall beforehand to make your appointment by calling the main number at 613-968-6481. Residents may also attend City Hall without an appointment. We have someone at the front door and they will work to get you in as space allows. This is a starting point for reopening our buildings to the public, and we are hopeful to continue to reduce these restrictions even further as we move forward. The City of Belleville has also given permission to the Belleville Farmers Market to resume their operations in the George Zagoras Market Square immediately behind City Hall. They are attending to a few final details with the health unit, and we hope to see them back in business this week. Transit operations will continue without charge for the month of July. As we continue to resume more and more of our scheduled transit service, I want to thank those employees and our riders for their cooperation. These are certainly unprecedented times, and we are experiencing a great deal of modifications. We will get through this, and thanks to everyone who is helping us to do so. We are also extending our free parking on city lots and meters to the end of July. We are here to help, and over the past few weeks, Director Ashton and Chief Building Official Forrestal have helped many businesses with the expansion of their patios onto city and private property in the City of Belleville. This is a result of the provincial changes to allow for this to occur, and the city has cooperated and facilitated this. If any business wishes to expand their seating area, please get in touch with us and we will help to make this happen. This is an unusual year, and we are committed to assist in any way that we can. The City of Belleville will again operate a cooling center as we get into the hot summer months. Last week, we announced that it will be located at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center at the west side entrance off of Canafton Road. Stay tuned for announcements when Fire Chief Mark McDonald activates this facility. As we continue to go through the regulations and sanitization protocols imposed by the province of Ontario and our local health unit, we are doing what we can to reopen municipal facilities and services. This coming Monday, June the 29th, we will see our 3 municipal splash pads reopen. We ask residents to keep attention on their children to ensure that social distancing is in place. We hope that we will be able to continue to provide this service, but I will point out that it depends upon our residents cooperating with safety protocols. Unfortunately, we will not be able to operate the outdoor Kinsman pool this summer. The requirements and health protocols are simply too onerous, and restrictions on numbers of people that are able to use it just don't make it possible for this summer. We are very disappointed, and we know that residents are disappointed, but we understand the situation we're in, and we look forward to having it back in operation next summer. Another bit of disappointing news, we will not be having City of Belleville funded fireworks this year to celebrate Canada Day. In an effort to not encourage gathering, and I remind everyone that the restrictions today are for no more than 10 individuals, the city and the chamber have decided not to proceed with fireworks this year. We're very sorry because we know how much we enjoy celebrating our nation's birthday, but they will be back next year. Our next meetings of Belleville City Council will be in person, starting with our budget deliberations on July the 6th. Budget packages will be sent out to councillors later this week, and I want to recognize the very difficult challenges this year for Director Hines and our finance department staff. They have done an excellent job. They have done an excellent job because there have been so many changing factors and versions of the budget documents. I want to remind councillors that Director Hines, CO Bove, and departmental directors and general managers are available to provide any clarifications or additional information as we prepare for our meeting on July the 6th. Following the budget meeting, we will return to in-person council meetings, and we will begin to deal with the backlog of non-urgent business since March 20th that has collected on our docket. I want to also inform council that we will be having an additional council meeting on Monday, July the 27th, and we will be going ahead with the August 10th scheduled council meeting. I expect the 4 meetings over the course of those 6 weeks, starting with the budget meeting on July the 6th, will allow us to get caught up. I know that committees are starting to resume their work, and we all have a lot to catch up upon. Thank you to everyone for your cooperation. And lastly, under new business, as we look forward to our schedule, I can inform you that we are likely not going to be having our scheduled meeting on August the 24th, and that we should be back into our normal schedule for the September 14th council meeting for the remainder of the year. Now, I preface that by saying, of course, what we have seen this year in terms of unexpected events and their impact on our schedule means that everything is subject to change, but I wanted to let you know about these changes so you can schedule yourselves accordingly. Again, I want to thank council and staff for their cooperation, and I'll open up the floor for any other new business. Councillor Kelly, and then Councillor, then I've got a list. Go ahead, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to bring up under new business, and you touched on it, was the cooling center at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center here in Belleville. I was just on the, before the meeting, on the Hastings Prince Edward Public Health website, and they've extended the heat warning for today and tomorrow. And this is day 5, and a heat wave is 2 consecutive days, 32 Celsius, with the humidity reaching up to 40. And I guess I'm wondering why that cooling center hasn't been open yet, because, and I know it's in partnership with Public Health, and I hope to hear from Fire Chief McDonald just to give us an update on this, because the health risks, older adults, kids, those that are homeless, low-income workers, there's nowhere to go. There's no relief. This is day 5, and you talk to meteorologists, and with you know, climate change, it seems like summers have been getting hotter. And I understand the COVID-19 and the physical distancing, but this has been tough for a lot of people. And this is, tomorrow will be day 5. So my question is just to get an update where we're at with the cooling center, and why are we stuck at the 40-degree mark? Because as of 3:06 right now, it is 32 and it's extremely humid. It's hot out there. So Mr. McDonald, would the cooling center be open right now in Belleville tonight?
So we'll bring Chief McDonald on. So just one little bit of information, Councillor Kelly. So the previous time to this last 5-day period, when it got warm, we had not been able to activate the cooling center at that time because of the restrictions on numbers of people in Ontario, and we were working on the proper sanitization protocols or whatnot. Subsequent to that, I think Councillor Thompson asked about that at the meeting. Chief McDonald and Mr. Bove were able to discuss it, and they worked with Director Fleur to be able to use a room at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center to have that open. In the meantime, of course, all of our municipal buildings are closed where people would normally go and whatnot. So that's the background on why it hadn't happened before. Chief McDonald, I wonder if you can give some explanation as to the criteria that we are using in the city of Belleville for activating the cooling center.
Yes, certainly through you, your worship, to Councillor Kelly and all council. The 40-degree threshold is set for more or less in Southern Ontario. That's been the heat alert is with Humidex would be 40C. That's what we've used in previous years, and that's what most of our neighboring municipalities along, say, the 401 corridor utilize. As an example, a heat alert in Northwest Territories is actually 29 degrees C because they can expect cooler temps, so maybe they're not as resilient to the higher temps. certainly at the direction of council. If they would like that threshold different, then that's certainly something that we can accommodate. We just looked at what the best practices were, much like our warming center in the wintertime. Those temperatures were from a large number of our municipal comparators in our region of the country. And of course, now we do have the capacity to run a cooling center. And it's sort of like the warming center, it becomes sort of a best guess thing where quite often the forecast and the actuals can differ. So we have to sort of call the shot, working with Mark Fleur and his team, and we're just going through that exercise now as to when to call the activate the center and arrange for staff and security. So we have to have a little bit of lead time on this, but certainly if it's a desire of council to look at a different number, then we will receive that direction accordingly.
Councillor Kelly?
Yes, thank you, Chief McDonald. I know you mentioned the 40 Celsius. However, from the weather world, 32 Celsius, if you're in that for a stretch of 48 to 60 plus hours or whatever, that's a heat wave at 32. And I just think of those folks this past weekend, how hot it is, how hot it has been, and it continues to be. And we're only in June, and we've got another 8-9 weeks of this, hopefully. Nice warm weather. I think of those families that don't have that option of AC.
Chief McDonald, I wonder if can you tell us how many years or how long have we had that 40-degree threshold as part of our policy?
I'm since 2013.
Okay.
But I could tell you that I am meeting with the medical officer, one of the medical officers with HP, Hastings and Prince Edward Health, tomorrow, to discuss the very cooling center discussions. Because you're right, Councillor Kelly, there is international standards that talk about longevity of a certain number of consecutive days, then that number can be decreased. So as soon as I get information and we have a meeting with Alexa Cadera from the medical officer with the Hastings Prince Edward, we could certainly apprise council that. And if it looks like we should be doing an adjustment from a health perspective for our citizens, we will certainly bring that information forward.
Thank you, Chief McDonald. And I would just add, there is a little bit of a difference this summer in that normally our municipal buildings are open and people could go in during the day and they escape from it. The mall is now open, but for a while it wasn't open. And I think that, you may want to consider some amendments this year, just until we get back to that more sense of normalcy. But we'll leave it with you. Thank you very much, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Thompson, I've got you next on the list if you want to activate your microphone.
Yeah, I got a couple of 3 items here. Staying on that cooling center, I had a few phone calls, 3 phone calls concerning what the temperature had to be. And I didn't know the temperature. I should have called you, Mr. McDonald, but I didn't. I'm concerned that I think 40 is too high. I certainly would like to see some recommendations come back from your organization sooner than later to possibly reduce it down to 30 or 35 because I just know that heat is very extreme for people and we need a cooling center. But as your worship says, the malls are now open, but very few buildings are open. So I would certainly like to see that lowered because there was people that was feeling the heat on the weekend and again today and again yesterday. So my second item is I had a question, taxpayer called me about the splash pads and you've answered that. Do we have any parks programs for kids for the weekend? Is any of that going on through the parks?
The short answer to that is no. And for a number of reasons, Councillor Thompson, we're continuing to evaluate all these changing circumstances and the changing regulations, not just from the province, but also from the health board. And I am not optimistic that we will have those programs this summer.
Okay. The last item I have is a number of months ago and maybe a year ago, we had an announcement about the meth clinic on Front Street. Is there any way of an update? I don't think that meth clinic has moved. Is there any update of when it's, and if it is still going to move and when it's going to move?
I'm smiling, Councillor Thompson, because you must be a mind reader. I had actually a telephone conversation with the CEO of that company on Friday last week, where I received an update from her. That organization, first of all, they are dealing with what they describe as unprecedented times in terms of addiction across the country and some of the challenges that COVID has placed on their organization. But after the city rezoned the South Church Street property to allow for them to move last year, the property actually sold. And so the new owners are going to operate in that facility, and they've started construction, and they are expecting a move in September of 2020. So the sale of the property gave it a little delay in their activities, but they are on site now, actively renovating it, and they are looking at a September date for a grand opening in the new facility.
The meth clinic is in the process of renovating to move in there then, is that right?
Yes, so one of the doctors that has the license for the OATC center on Front Street purchased that building. We had rezoned it for a landlord. That landlord then sold the property to the tenants coming in. Okay. And so that slowed it down a little bit. But as I said, I had the same question myself a couple of weeks ago, and we were playing telephone tag, but I finally was able to speak with Ms. Locklear on Friday, and she gave us that good news that they will be in their fully renovated facility in September.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next, I have Councillor Sanderson on my list. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through yourself to CAL Belleville. There was some discussion, I believe, last week from Hexel and Truss regarding early occupancy to put 4 production lines in place. I just wonder if he's in a position to give us an update on when we can expect that those 4 production lines will be moving into the building.
Thank you. CEO Beauvais.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Sanderson. I spoke with our CBO, Brett Forstall, on Friday. Him and his staff are working constantly with EXO to get their occupancy of the building. Certainly the work to install the lines has been going on for quite some time. They have temporary occupancy, working on 4 of the lines and getting staff in and getting trained. And I believe there's an issue with a final component that deals with some flammable liquids that requires some special consideration under both the fire code and the building code that they're working through to try and get a solution that satisfies those codes. So I believe they're in good shape and moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next I have Councillor Williams and Councillor Millette.
There we go.
Williams. Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. So I just have 2 items today. One is talking to a lot of business owners in the city. These are tough times for a lot of owners, a lot of retail owners, a lot of restaurants. We're seeing some movement, and some people are able to make some more revenue. Certainly programs from the federal government are helping out, but there's been some tough times. A suggestion from one owner, and I've looked at it, I think is a great idea, is to look at our bylaw around opening retail and statutory holidays. And cities like Kingston have done this. There's other areas. And I think what businesses are just looking for, it's not all businesses, but some, specifically if they have an LCBO component to them. There's a couple in Thurlow. What happens is, if the bylaw right now for the statutory or the statute from Ontario limits them from being able to open on civic holidays, unless there's a bylaw from the city that allows us to look at the openings for that and allows them to do that. Part of that, and what's happened in Kingston, is to designate Belleville as a tourism destination, which then allows us to, by designated tourism, allow these businesses to open. It might be Canada Day, it might be Family Day in the off season, but I think that's something to help businesses. So I just have a request. It's a staff report. The council support the city taking the necessary steps required under the Retail Business Holidays Act to have a bylaw prepared for council's consideration that would permit retail businesses to operate on statutory holidays within the city of Belleville. I'm going to add as a caveat on there, by designating Belleville as a tourism destination. And that is just mirroring what Kingston has done.
Okay. CAO Bove. So Councillor Williams is asking for a report to come back in the future. Do you have any information on this? I'm not aware of what the steps we would take for this, but do you have anything you want to add to this?
Through your worship to all of council, I believe that Councillor Williams has had some discussion with the city clerk. There is a process that we have to follow through the province, and I think the best that I can suggest is the clerk and I will gather information and find out exactly what needs to be done and the steps we have to take to make that application and get that back to council.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. The second item, it's really a housekeeping note and a request. You know, these are tough times, and obviously we're seeing that with Zoom meetings and council, and everyone's having a lot of fun. We're getting things done though, and we're following some great steps. And I commend the CAO, I commend all of council for getting together and making sure that we can make this happen. What we're hearing across Canada and across the world right now is that there's always talk of a second wave, and it's not if, it's when. And even though we're lightening things up and we're getting back, I think that when we look at some criticisms to what happened when this all started, this pandemic that we're in, is that we weren't prepared enough. And so I'm wondering for another staff report, if we might be able to have perhaps from Clerk McDonald and for CAO Bove, a report that looks at certain steps that council would make if this happens again, if there's another shutdown, in terms of procedure for electronic meetings, if there's recommendations we'd have to make to a procedural bylaw permanently that we haven't made already. One thing I'm interested in that report is what's deemed urgent and non-urgent. If we had still been shut down, would we still have been able to have a budget? Could we change something to make that happen? We have a COVID recovery plan that was passed through the committee level of EDDC. It's not urgent enough to get on council today. So how do we look at that as a council to have the debate and discussion when things should happen and come forward? If we can just look at that, I think it's better to be prepared than non-prepared should this come back. I think there's a lot of lessons learned. I think we all are doing an extremely great job, but I think it's great for the city of Belleville, for council to be over-prepared than under-prepared. Should this happen again, that we're over-prepared, we're ready for this, and that we can still conduct the business of the city appropriately.
Sure. I think the clerk and the CO can work together on that one as well and give the best learnings from this process, but also if we've made permanent changes to allow for us to deal with it quicker going forward. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Millette, I've got you next on the agenda or on my schedule.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just circling back to comments made by Councillors Kelly and Thompson. Perhaps either Chief McDonald or Mr. Fleur would know. In the past, when we've run the cooling centers, how many people on average avail themselves of the facility, and is it widely used? I know we're all saying, oh, we should lower the threshold. We should, it's terrible to heat, but truly, how many people? I know we've had numbers on the warming centers, and they've been up there. But I'm just wondering how much are people using the cooling centers when we do initiate them?
Sure. Chief McDonald, do you want to activate your microphone? Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sure. Through the chair to Councillor Millette. One of the challenges that we have with a cooling center, which is different from the warming center, is the warming center operates after hours, and we keep a log of visitors. The cooling centers generally use our facilities during the day, so it's really hard to tell if the person going to the library or going to the sports and wellness center is seeking respite from the heat, or they're just there for an activity. Such as signing out a book or doing a recreational program. So with this cooling center, our goal is going to be, because of the way it's set up, thanks to the RCCS team, we will have a controlled entry point. So we actually will be able to get some data to see just how truly it's being used, and then go forward from there. But historically, we've never really kept data on the cooling center because we haven't really kept track of the people as to why they were coming in the facilities.
Go, okay, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Millette. Okay, Chief McDonald, just again, this is the third member that's asked questions about this, and I think that This is an unusual year in that the traditional places that are open during the day at the peak of the temperature are closed. And so do you have the ability to adjust or modify the temperatures? I don't see anybody here that would have a problem with for the next few weeks until a time when all of our traditional buildings are open. Up until that point, if we would lower that temperature, activate the cooling center now, be able to generate those numbers that you're talking about. I think we're all sympathetic to the fact that for the past 7 years, it's been 40 degrees and it's continued. And I can say that last term as a councillor and this term prior to this last couple months, I had never received a call regarding the cooling center because people had access during the day to the library or elsewhere. So do you have the ability to modify that on your own, or do you need a motion from council to do that?
No, it's never been a bylaw or motion of council to operate the cooling center or the warming center. It's just so absolutely we can if there's you're getting the feedback probably more than staff are through members of council, and if we want to look at using 30 as a number instead of 40, we can certainly do that.
Sure. So I think for the next few weeks that would be a wise decision. And then as we see, if things continue to go in the direction that we're seeing them and more buildings will open, then we can take a look at that. But I think just judging from the room, we would all be good with that. I know that this will mean that it's activated more often, but until we can provide that, it will be a good idea. So if I don't see any objections, it'll be a 30-degree temperature would be the activation criteria, and the chief will take this going forward. Councillor Millette?
Just quickly, 30-degree temperature or 30-degree humidex?
Temperature, and the humidex would be higher than that, obviously, so. But,
so I think what Councillor, sorry, Your Worship, I think what Councillor Kelly was referring to was, and I believe Chief McDonald, if I'm not mistaken, was when the combined temperature and humidex total 40 degrees, which is somewhere what we're at right now. And I think that's what they're thinking of. So my
30 degrees combined, I'm fine with it. So okay. 30 degrees combined, heat and temperature and humidity levels. Wait, sorry, I'm getting a comment. So as we try to do this on the fly here, CEO Bove, do you want to?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just maybe to avoid some confusion, most municipalities use a combination of temperature and humidex. So the province of Ontario sets a standard for most of Southern Ontario that uses 31 degrees temperature and or 40 degrees Celsius humidex. And so if either of those are met, then you open your cooling center. I think historically the city has simply had the humidex reading. So when it hit 40 degrees Celsius on the humidex, we would open the cooling center. I think going forward, we probably should match what the province has used, it being 31 degrees for at least 2 days and or 40 degrees humidex. I think that would be the good approach, or 30 degrees and 40 degrees. But certainly if you had a 30-degree humidex value, you would never close it probably for the month of July and August in these parts. The other thing I want to clarify, while I have the floor, is the intention of the cooling center is to be open during the heat of the day. So it would be open 9 to 6 is the schedule. It is not intended to be open after that at night. So I want that to be clear that this is just a place during the heat of the day that people can get out of those warm temperatures.
Okay, so just as we try to bring this together, Councillor Kelly and Councillor Thompson, 31 degrees Celsius temperature and 40 with the humidex. Either one of those numbers, are you okay with that being the activation?
That's fine.
Councillor Kelly says yes. Councillor Thompson?
No.
You want it to be what then, sir?
On 30 degrees Celsius and 35 with the humidex.
Okay, so do you want to make a motion? And again, I caution you that the motion should get support, because if it doesn't get support, then we will have problems under reconsideration. So that's the challenge we have in democracy. So
Can we,
Well,
just let me, Councillor Thompson has the floor, and I'll.
Yeah, I just think getting up to 40 degrees humidity index is fairly high. But I certainly don't want it to be reconsidered. But maybe somebody can make an amendment if I make a motion.
So how about, Councillor Thompson, how about 31 and 35?
Yep.
Okay, so Councillor Thompson's making well, again, we don't need a motion for this. I'm sorry, this is my fault. I shouldn't have said that. We don't need a motion. Chief McDonald can make this decision administratively. He's just looking for some direction. I think we have 31 and 35. Does anyone have any problems with that as the chief dealing with the next number of weeks until we get into a situation where more public buildings during the day could be open? Seeing none, Chief, I think you've got some direction of our feelings, and then we'll let you administer it.
Message
Thank you. Go ahead. And thank you to all the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center staff who will be assisting with that. Okay. Councillor Millette, thank you very much. Councillor Carr, I've got you next on the list.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to follow up. Question was asked last week about the mayor's task force, and you'd indicated back in May that you were going to send out some more information. Will that be coming to council in terms of the terms of reference anytime soon?
No on the terms of reference, because there are none. It's an ad hoc committee. There may be some recommendations coming back to council in the future. I think we're trying to schedule a second meeting to look at making a recommendation for some additional funding for advertising for when Belleville is ready. But I don't want to speak on behalf of what the consensus will be of that group.
Okay, and like when I read the procedural bylaw, it talks about the fact that you or council can establish the ad hoc committee, and it says consisting of such members as council may determine. I was just wondering if it was coming back to council.
No.
That's very interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's all I've got on the list. Anybody else have anything for new business? Seeing none, we will move now on to motions. And we have a motion from Councillor Culhane, which came forward at the last meeting, that City Council grant the designation of Curator Emerita to Rona Rustridge, Curator at Glanmore National Historic Site. Councillor Culhane, I am assuming you are moving it. I need a seconder for the motion. Councillor Sanderson has seconded. Councillor Culhane, if you want to activate your microphone, you have the floor.
Thank you, Worship. As chair of Glanmore Advisory Committee, it's my privilege and my pleasure to make this motion to request that Rona Rustridge be appointed Curator Emerita. This is in recognition of her long and distinguished career, dedicated these past many years to maintaining the history and heritage of Glanmore House. Glanmore is a federal museum and a jewel in this community. The title of Curator Emerita is honorary and unpaid. It will allow Ms. Rustridge to consider to advise on the work at Glanmore as the most knowledgeable volunteer once she has retired, and it's a distinction well deserved. To that end, I move that City Council grant the designation of Curator Emerita to Rona Rustridge, Curator at Glanmore National Historic Site. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Culhane. Discussion on the motion. Anyone have anything they'd like to add? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you very much. Any notice of motions? Seeing none, we'll now move to announcements. Does anybody have any announcements they'd like to make today? Councillor Carr.
Thank you very much. I'm going to try something new here for the first time, but I'm going to conduct a virtual town hall meeting next Monday June 29th from 6:30 to 7:30 for Ward 2 residents. And I would ask them if they could register through me at councillor.carr@belleville.ca. Please include their address and any questions they may have, and I will send out a reservation confirmation from there. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else for announcements? Councillor Kelly.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to congratulate the pop-ups, all the businesses down in West Wicks Park. And I was there yesterday, had a chance to bump into the mayor and his wife on Father's Day as well. And it seems to be going really well there. Lots of good energy. So good luck to all the businesses, and thanks to everybody in the area for popping down and supporting them. Also, too, the mayor made reference today that the next meeting that we have will be back in council chambers, practicing social distancing if everything goes well. And this is kind of, I'm looking forward to it, but it's been a historic time here doing these Zoom council meetings. So to Mark Coyle and all his team of producers putting this together, and working Councillor Culhane's microphone, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Last call before I finish up with announcements. I proclaimed June 20th as the Day of the Smile in the city of Belleville on our social media platforms. Today, I would like to now officially proclaim the day for the record. Every 3 minutes, a child is born with a cleft lip, a cleft palate, or both. Let's show our support and pass the smile on. And I was privileged to be partially raised by a great aunt who had a cleft palate herself. And so I am very pleased to make this proclamation. It is my great pleasure to announce the second donation in 2 years of a city lot to Habitat for Humanity. Last year, for the first time in 20 years, we donated a piece of property on Sydney Street as one of the recommendations coming out of the 2019 Housing Summit, where we pledged to donate 1 city lot per year. This second donated parcel is also on Sydney Street and will be conveyed very shortly. Time is of the essence for this donation because Habitat for Humanity already has a home ready to go. I want to recognize Andy Gertzma and his partners at Gertzma Homes, who have generously donated an existing home. As soon as the basement is dug, they can move this structure in and it will be ready for a family very soon. Congratulations to Habitat for Humanity, and thanks to Gertzma Homes. We as a council feel this is a great news story, and we're proud to be part of such an important project. Last Thursday, we held a very successful 2020 launch of our new pop-ups on the Bay at Wicks Park. This was the first opening of an activity or facility since before this pandemic started back in March. It was great to be there along with Councillors Carr, Kelly, Millette, McCaw, Sanderson, Thompson, and Williams. Thank you to all the staff who worked so hard to get us to this day, and congratulations to all the vendors. Best wishes for a very successful summer. Our pop-ups are a perfect family-friendly and COVID-safe activity to be enjoyed all summer long. There are multiple vendors offering something for everyone to enjoy, and we wish them lots of success. Lastly, as we continue to deal with the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, I want to take a moment to thank all of the essential employees who from the very beginning continue to provide necessary services for our residents and our businesses. As we begin to see non-essential businesses return to operation, we appreciate everyone's cooperation. As we work together with compassion and understanding, we will get through this together. Congratulations to all the graduates at all levels of school. Thanks to the administrators for ensuring that in these unusual times, these students are able to still mark these tremendous achievements. And then lastly, I want to say Happy Canada Day to everyone. In spite of our situation, I believe the vast majority of us recognize that we live in the best country in the world. And I hope that you are all able to take a moment on July the 1st to reflect on how much we have to be thankful for. Happy Canada Day, Bon Fête Canada. With that, I will ask for a confirmatory bylaw, that bylaw number 2020-128, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on June the 22nd, 2020, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally pass this 22nd day of June. Moved by Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor Millette. All in favor? It's carried. Motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Williams. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you, everybody.